Welcome to A Leader Story, where we explore the unique paths of extraordinary leaders. In each episode, we ask the same 7 questions to our guests, revealing the diverse journeys and insights that shape their success. Join us as we uncover the stories that make each leader's experience truly one of a kind. Today, we have Joshua Copeland, a seasoned cybersecurity leader and engineer with 25 years of experience. Joshua has a proven track record of building and leading diverse, multifaceted teams that bridge the gap between technical details and business needs. As a director of managed security services at Quadrant Information Security, he oversees cutting-edge SOC operations and cybersecurity governance. Joshua is also known as the unpopular opinion guy on LinkedIn, where he shares insights on hiring, mentoring, and cybersecurity. Join us as we delve into his leadership journey and the wisdom he's gained along the way. So let's get right into it. Joshua, what is one decision you made that was a turning point for your leadership?
For me, it's going to sound absolutely cliche, but it was when I was 17 years old and I decided to join the military and specifically the Air Force. The leadership training, the mentors, the leadership by example that I had over the course of a 20-year career was just absolutely phenomenal. I truly saw firsthand the difference between what leadership is and what management is, and that they are not remotely the same thing. And the way they structure the way leadership is taught, taking you from very basic first line supervisor, where you have a couple direct reports, all the way up to leading hundreds to thousands of people across your entire career, and the way that's done in a methodology that is builds upon each other and sets you up for success. And then for me, set me up for success, well after my time in the service.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can you dive into a little bit of, some of the maybe key takeaways that you learned in that journey from the military perspective?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting in that the best leaders are always people focused.
Mm.
They're the folks who go, I'm going to give you the things you need to do your job. I'm going to give you the training to do it, but then I'm going to let you go do your job. I'm going to give you the opportunities to be awesome at whatever it is that you're doing, and set up the scenarios in which not only are those people allowed to be awesome, but they're recognized for being awesome. You know, one of the key things I learned was, all credit and recognition goes down, all blame stays up with you. And
Mm.
that's been a key kind of guiding principle for me is, if it's bad, I'll take the hit. If it's good, I want the people below me to have all that credit because they're the ones, where the rubber meets the road.
That's really good. I've never heard it phrased that way. If it's bad, it sticks with me. If it's good, it goes to you. I like that. That's going to be a highlight of this one. I like that. So, second question, Joshua, how do you foster innovation and creativity within your team?
Like, very first thing is you have to empower your team to come up with good ideas. You know, Nobody likes that's the way we've always done it, or, at my last company or my last organization, this is how we did it. You know, Allow innovation. I'm a firm believer in don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Hmm.
I don't need something to be 100%, you know, absolutely the way we want it to be before we roll that out. Because ultimately, I'd rather move the needle one tick a day every day than suffer not moving the needle at all for weeks, months, or years because we keep trying to refine whatever we're doing to where it's perfect before we implement it. Not everything has to be a success because ultimately we probably learn something along that process on either what doesn't work, why it doesn't work, and that's something that's going to make us better for the next thing that we do.
That's really good. I like that. So, third question, Joshua, how do you balance driving results with maintaining a positive team culture?
The phrase work is going to be here was something that was told to me as a very, very young airman that has really stuck with me. Work is going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be here the next day. You don't need to kill yourself to try to get everything done each and every day. Burnout is real. It's extremely high in cybersecurity and particularly with SOC teams because they're a 24/7, 365, no fail job. If a SOC fails, bad things happen to that organization. When you look at just the raw facts, replacing somebody who leaves costs you 1/3 on average of their base annual salary.
Hmm.
So if you have an analyst that's, you're paying 100K a year, it's going to cost you overall 30K to replace that person. And that doesn't include the salary of the next person to come in. So that's money that you're going to lose because you didn't take care of people. If I invest that money into my people, encourage appropriate time off, actual disconnecting from the job, so that when they're off, they're actually off and they're not grabbing their phone and constantly answering, text messages and checking their email, you know, that contributes to an environment where they feel that they can contribute, they have impact, and they feel that they can actually, take time off and be a valued member of the team to the point where they don't feel bad for taking time off. And that's something I've seen largely in cybersecurity as a whole, is that because we are so passionate about cybersecurity and protecting other people, because that's ultimately what cybersecurity is about, is protecting people, that folks feel bad when they take off. So they don't take off. And, the folks that have unlimited PTO never use any. And the folks who have uh, earned PTO end up with a bank of like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, sometimes 3, 4 months worth of paid time off that they never take because ultimately they want to get things done. So you got to kind of shift that to where it's okay to take time off. And if you can't take time off, that's a me problem because I have not set up the organization where you feel that you can take time off and everything's not going to fall off the wheels.
That's good. So I'm interested in how you'll answer this question, especially being from the security space. Joshua, next question. Can you describe a moment when you had to make a tough ethical decision?
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting ones involved in one of my previous roles where I was running a SOC, and we had a underperforming contractor employee. We tried everything, the gentle nudges, formal retraining repeatedly, formal reprimands, getting their source provider involved, and we still couldn't really get any traction on improvement. So I had to make the hard decision that, we were going to let this individual go. But as what happens, life gets in the way. I absolutely could have left him go immediately, but that would have had a much bigger impact to the larger team. That would have been pretty rough. 24/7, 365 coverage is not easy, especially when you're trying to keep your head count down to the minimum possible to get the job done because you have to, make margins. People cost money. And when you do that, that would have, forced me to pull people in to cover shifts, mandatory overtime, all these things that just people generally don't particularly care for. So I opened a rec, started doing all the sourcing to replace the person. And then over the course of the next 6 months, we had a couple people get promoted. We had a couple people leave to new amazing opportunities at other organizations. And it always seemed to coincide by the time I got the person to replace the bad person, their replacement trained, somebody else left. So I was kind of in this a bit of a pickle and kind of an ethical standpoint of, do I let the person go and let my team suffer? Or do I keep the person where they're underperforming and my team suffers, but suffers a little bit less
Yeah.
because they're not being stressed out from having to do all the coverage? Um, and I know my team was thinking, because I was still getting complaints about their performance, and they were thinking, why is this person still here? Um, and that was the case. They were underperforming. They should have been let go. But kind of the net effect of not letting them go when I wanted to was more positive for my team than what the negatives were. And it was kind of an interesting scenario where I know my right answer is underperformer, you let them go. But to take care of my team, sometimes having somebody, even if they're not, up to your standards, is better than nobody at all.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's an interesting dilemma. That scenario has not come up yet. The idea of letting someone go has, but the balance of should I or shouldn't I from an ethical dilemma hasn't been. That's interesting thought process. So eventually, what was the result? Was it just finding that person and finally replacing,
Yeah.
or I mean, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we eventually got to a point in timing where I intentionally hired one over what I had planned to,
yep.
and was able to eventually let that person go. My understanding is they left cybersecurity as a field because it just wasn't something that they were passionate about, which translates into what their work performance was.
Yeah.
And we got an amazing, person come in and filled that void and made the team better for it.
Yeah, I think as a manager, it's always one of the toughest issues of letting someone go. So, leading into the next question, Joshua, what role does feedback play in your leadership? How do you both give and receive it?
So to me, feedback is the key to success, both up and down the chain as well as laterally. My teams will tell me that, or I tell my teams all the time, and they'll tell you that they've heard it, was that I don't know what I don't know. And the only way I know that is through feedback. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a decision, the feedback I get helps me create buy-in. Every decision I make is not going to be well liked. That's just the nature of, being the boss and having to make decisions. But the feedback I get can help me tell the appropriate story around that of why that decision is being made, why that decision, while they can't maybe see it right now, if I give them this additional broader context, that decision might be better for them in the long run. And that's kind of the, you know, idea that I use is that the more feedback you give me, the more clarity I can provide you. And that works both, me getting feedback as well as me giving feedback. I want to be really straightforward. I want to be, completely and honest with you. I'm a big proponent of the, kind of Chatham House rules thing of, when we're having a feedback session, I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. You can tell me exactly, your views and your perspective, and it will never be, attributed back to you that this ever occurred if I'm using that as something to make change, because that's about building trust. I trust you to tell me, you know, to quote unquote, that the baby's ugly. If I'm giving you an ugly baby, I want you and I want you to feel that you can trust me enough to say, this is an ugly baby. This is what we might be able to do with it. And if I don't have that kind of relationship, that's a failure on my part. Colin Powell has a thing where I'm going to loosely paraphrase: when soldiers stop coming to you with problems, you're the problem. And I think that applies across the board. When your subordinates stop coming to you with issues, you're the issue.
That's really insightful. I like that. I like that a lot. So, moving into the next question, Joshua, how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
So to me, continued growth is not an option. I require a lot from my teams. As such, I have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. I put out a reading list every year where I buy all my direct reports copies of the book. Well, to be able to do that, I have to be out there reading lots and lots of books to be able to make appropriate recommendations for my team. I have to be out there learning. I have to be, going and doing all the things that I would expect them to do, and then I'm grading them based off of their, performance metrics. I have to do that every single thing, but to the next level as well. So if I'm putting them out for, training requirements, I'm in there doing the training with them. Or more than likely, I've already completed the training, so I know exactly what I'm asking them to do before I even give it to them. You know, when you kind of do that, you engender some, I'll say, a little bit of loyalty in that they know that you're not giving them something that you're not willing to do yourself, that you're putting the time in just as much as they are. It's not a rule for thee and, no rule for me type of scenario. And it's just a desire to make my team better forces me to get better. Because
Mm,
if they're better, I need to be just as good as they are.
that's good. I like that. It's concise and to the point, but you're totally right. You have to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. And I think especially in the cybersecurity space, right? I think in technology sometimes IT's maybe, you have leaders that maybe don't fully grasp everything that's going on, but I think in cybersecurity especially, it has to be ingrained from the top level down of everything you're doing. I mean, so no, that's really good insights. I appreciate that. And you mentioned books, so a good segue into the next and last question. Joshua, what leadership book and or books has influenced you the most and why?
I think I'll give you two books that have influenced me the most. Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, and The Rule of Three Leadership by a good friend of mine and fellow airman, Atlas Altman. Both books focus primarily on a people first mentality. when you know your people and have articulate your goals and align them with what your people value, the things that they can do is truly amazing, and what you see come from it. When you don't do those things, you don't make your people feel protected. You don't make sure that they understand where their goals are. That's where you kind of have, issues with your organization. I subscribe to kind of, from a leadership perspective, I have what I call my 4 pillars. And anybody that's been in the military will recognize the first 3: organize, train, equip. And it's, I get the right people, give them the right tools, and give them the right training. That's some pretty basic stuff. I had a 4th one, mentor, because it's really, that's where you get your next level performance, is when you're truly mentoring folks. You're giving them the opportunity to not only do the things that you want them to do, but excel at the things that they want to do as it aligns with your mission, which kind of goes back to that people first mentality, and understanding that, if you do things right, people are going to, do phenomenal things. If you do them wrong, people are going to do the absolute bare minimum. And that's kind of a really good gauge as a leader of, what are my folks doing, and what does that say about me as a leader?
That's really good. That's good. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Joshua, I really appreciate your time. I think, you've got some great insights that will be translated well to, up and coming leaders, and along with the current, generation of leaders that need to fine tune what they're doing. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and talk with the audience, and looking forward to getting this episode out to everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
It was great having Joshua on A Leader's Story this week. His background in the military and cybersecurity give him an interesting spin on leading teams, which can be applied to many leaders today. Thank you for joining us on this week's edition of A Leader's Story. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe to help more people discover these inspiring leadership stories. And don't forget to tune in every Tuesday for new episodes. See you next week, and keep writing your own unique leadership story.